What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my team selection for Game Week 22. So I'm going to run you through how the team is looking, thoughts on where to spend my 4 free transfers, captaincy decisions, and all that good stuff. And I'll show you how I did in Game Week 21. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button. Let's get into it. So let's take a quick look at how I did in Game Week 21. I scored 63 points overall, which wasn't enough for a green arrow. I fell from about 142k to 181k, which is not ideal. But I did say on the deadline stream that I probably would have taken a small red arrow this week because I wasn't captaining Salah, didn't have Gordon, Fernandes, Chris Wood, Lewis Hall, etc. And I know Chris Wood had Liverpool, so I wasn't massively worried, but I knew his ownership was quite high. And up until about the 80th minute of the Man United game last night, I'd only fallen about 10,000 places. I had that small red arrow, but then Amad Diallo scored a hat-trick in 12 minutes, and that pushed me down another 30,000 places. So in the end, I probably fell a little bit more than I wanted to, but I still don't think the game week was a complete disaster. Like, I saved my transfers, so I got 4 for next week. The 3 that I looked at doing was Gabriel, Rodgers and Solanke to Lewis Hall, Fernandes and Raul Jimenez. And I'll be honest, after Gabriel conceded and finished on 1 point, Solanke got an own goal, I was fearing the worst. Like, Gabriel, Rodgers, Solanke scored 7 points between them. But in the end, Lewis Hall, Bruno Fernandes and Raul Jimenez only scored 11. So I'm 4 points down, a little bit of team value as well. I really don't think that's the end of the world. Captaining Palmer over Salah was nice. That was a big, gain in points. Munoz finally came in with a clean sheet. I didn't have Gordon, but I did have Eze, who got an assist and 6 points. Didn't have Bruno, who obviously blanked and got 2 bonus, but I had Rodgers, who got 6 points. So overall, I'm actually okay with the week for a red arrow. I took the captaincy off of Isak and put it on Palmer. And obviously, Isak outscored him, but I'm not even that annoyed about the decision making. We know that Isak was, I wouldn't say that he was a doubt to start. I always thought that he would start. But we know that Newcastle are being a bit cautious with him. He came off around the 75th minute. Obviously, partly because the damage had already been done. But I wouldn't be completely surprised if we see that a few more times. And look, it's a 6-point difference between him and Palmer captaincy. Again, all these little things add up. The 4 points on the transfers, the 6 point on the captaincy. But I'm not going to beat myself up about that. I don't think I did anything majorly wrong in terms of mistakes. João Pedro benching was probably a mistake. But I luckily didn't get punished too much by that. He only scored 1 point. And let's be honest, right, it was a bit unlucky to get an own goal from Solanke. That's not going to happen too often. So, not a great week. Let's see if 22 is better. So, as I just mentioned, I got 4 free transfers and just 0.1 million in the bank. But I'm actually quite happy with how my defensive players look this week. So, in goal, I've got David Raya. Generally, most of us don't spend a huge amount of transfers moving our goalkeepers around. And I'm certainly not in a rush to get rid of him. I think if I do transfer him over the next couple of weeks, it'll be for a double game week goalkeeper, either Alisson or Pickford, and I haven't made my mind up about which one it will be. But either way, it doesn't really matter this week. I don't have to make the decision right now because Alisson's got Brentford away, which is probably a little bit worse than Aston Villa at home. At least I don't think there's a huge amount of difference between the fixtures simply because Liverpool have got an away game. If it was Brentford at home, maybe it'd be a little bit different. And Pickford, I just don't want to bring in until I absolutely have to, which would be game week 24. So Raya definitely stays. Gabriel, it's a similar situation. I'm happy to move him on, but only when there's a massive upgrade, I would say. Like Lewis Hall this week against Bournemouth at home is great. Is he massively better than Gabriel against Villa at home? I don't think so. The other defenders that obviously people will say that I'm missing are Forest ones. And don't get me wrong, right? It looks like a guaranteed clean sheet against Southampton. Like, Southampton played very well last night, but they partly played very well because they were playing against Man United. Forest won't give them that much space and time, etc. So that's a great fixture. But after that, I'm really not that bothered about not having a Forest defender between game weeks 23 to kind of 28. Bournemouth away, Brighton at home, Fulham away, Newcastle away, Arsenal at home, City at home. That's a pretty dodgy run for any defence. Even if Arsenal had that run, obviously they can't play themselves, but if they had that run, I wouldn't be that confident about clean sheets, at least not to the point where I would want to do a Gabriel to Forest defender. So he definitely stays. I'm currently playing Munoz over Anderson. Fulham definitely have the better fixture with Leicester away, but I'm sure at some point soon Munoz is going to go and get us one of those attack and returns. I'm a little bit worried that Munoz is going to turn into what Ait-Nouri was a few weeks ago when everyone had him. He just didn't get any returns, but he did at least pick up a clean sheet last week. And I don't expect Palace to get a clean sheet against West Ham away, but I'm not necessarily expecting one for Fulham against Leicester away. I guess clean sheet wise, Fulham probably are slightly better, but I'm just going to take the attacking potential from Munoz instead. And if I need Anderson off the bench, he's there. And then Trent Alexander-Arnold, I've talked about a lot. I just think the justification to sell him is not there. I think it's fair enough if you don't want to bring him in. Absolutely. Go for someone more secure like Van Dijk. But I just think Trent keeps starting. Liverpool have got other matches they can rest him in. Like Champions League, it's pretty much done, right? It's not 100% guarantee, but they are going to finish top 8. If Slot wants to rotate Trent and play Bradley, he can do it in the Champions League. They can win those games without Trent. The Premier League matches at the moment are probably more important. Later on, that might change as Liverpool get further in the competition. But I just think Trent starts against Brentford away. Then it's Ipswich at home. Then it's a double. There's just no way I can sell him. We can talk about whether he's value for money all we want. But really the decision is he worth a transfer out? What does that allow me elsewhere? And the answer is nothing. So he's going to stay as well. So I'm a little bit less happy about my midfield compared to my defenders, mostly because of who I don't own. And no, I'm not particularly worried about Anthony Elanga, although I am expecting him to score at least a brace against Southampton. But it's more like Bruno Fernandes, who I know blanked against Southampton, but is still a good option moving forward and picked up a bit more ownership last week. And also Anthony Gordon, who's really highly owned. And Bournemouth at home is decent. Like Bournemouth are a really good team, but Newcastle will cause them problems at home. And in their place, I've basically got Brian Mbeumo with Liverpool at home, which is not ideal, especially when he's up against Trent Alexander-Arnold. And then I've got Eze against West Ham away. Now, I actually think Eze's an okay pick. He's got me 3 returns in 3 game weeks since I've owned him, but he's not as good as Bruno or Gordon. So I'm a little bit worried that people are going to have one up on me this week in terms of midfield, but I don't think there's any need to panic because in isolation, Eze is still an okay pick. Like, I'm not worried about him right now. And he's a bit cheaper than Bruno and Gordon as well. I think once I get past this Liverpool fixture for Mbeumo, the fixtures are decent for Brentford. And I actually think people that don't have Mbeumo will maybe look at bringing him in from game week 23 onwards. So I think I'm going to stick with them. Ultimately, I don't have the money to go from Eze to Gordon anyway. Even if I wanted to, I'd have to make another move. And I don't think it's worth 2 free transfers. And in Mbeumo, I'm not actually sure if I can even afford it anymore. I don't know what Gordon's gone up to. So I've got 7.5 to spend. Yeah, Gordon's 7.7 now. So I can't even afford that either. And as much as I'm worried about Gordon because of his ownership and how well he's done, again, I don't think it's worth 2 transfers. So I'm probably just going to stick with my midfield. I've got Morgan Rogers on the bench against Arsenal away. Probably going to avoid playing him if I can just because I've got double Arsenal defence. And then, like for most people, Palmer and Salah, just no considerations whatsoever for selling them. At the moment, the captain's armband is on Cole Palmer, who has actually outscored Salah in 3 of the last 4 game weeks. Salah's scored like 1 or 2 more points, but if you nailed the captaincy in the correct weeks, Palmer's actually done a little bit better. He's got 3 10-pointers in the last 4. I think this is a really close call. And I said last week I was on Palmer and I wasn't sure if I was going to switch back to Salah, but realistically, that was probably never going to happen because it was Forest away. This week, there is every chance I will switch. I see Brentford and Wolves' defences as quite similarly bad, right? I expect them both to concede. And Salah's underlying numbers are better than Palmer. So it's how much emphasis do I put on the fact that Palmer's at home and Salah's away? Like some people mentioned to me that, you know, after the Salah blank and the fact that Brentford got a 2-2 result against City, that Brentford away is not an easy fixture, but they concede a lot of goals, right? It was over 2 XG that Man City put up. Liverpool are fully capable of doing the same. And let's not start pretending that Salah's not in form. He should have scored against Nottingham Forest towards the end of that game. So I think it's a really close decision. I had a look on the My Team tool on Fantasy Football Hub. As always, if you want to check these tools out for yourself, 7-day free trial, 30% off, link in the description below. They've got Palmer expected points 8.2, Salah 7.9. So they're favouring Palmer, but it just shows how close the decision is. And like I was happy enough to go against Salah's ownership last week. I'm not so sure I am this week because Brentford away is not a bad fixture. And I think I don't tend to flip-flop on my opinions too much. Like a few weeks ago, everyone was on, you know, it's got to be Salah permanent captain. Now people are talking about like Chris Wood and stuff. Like, let's be real, Salah is still an incredible option. I don't think you need me to tell you that. As it stands, I'm on Palmer. I just don't know if it's going to stick. And then up front, I've got João Pedro in Man United away, who we now know is fit. He played 77 minutes against Ipswich last night, so I would expect him to start again against Man United, although I think an early sub is probably on the table. I wouldn't expect him to play the full 90, but it's probably not enough to look to get rid of him. Dominic Solanke, Everton away. Not great against Arsenal, a 0-pointer, an own goal, but the fixture on for Spurs does get a lot better now. So just to have a quick look at it, it's Everton away this week, then it's Leicester at home, Brentford away, Man United at home, and Ipswich away. All those 5 fixtures are pretty decent. Like Man United, have they turned a corner after the performances against Arsenal and Liverpool? The Southampton game last night tells you that they haven't. And that's actually part of the reason that I don't mind playing João Pedro. Brighton will cause Man United problems. Now, I will say, part of the problems that Southampton caused last night was Sulemana on the left up against Yora, right centre-back. I don't think Yora is going to start again. It'll be De Ligt, Maguire and Martinez as the back 3. Whether Matoma can do what Sulemana did, I don't know. Probably, he's a decent player. So I'm not sure Man United will be caused as many problems, but they showed they are still susceptible to conceding plenty of chances. Like Southampton, who've only had 6 points all season, came very close to getting a result last night. And they still put up like 1.5 XG or something like that against Man United. So even that Man United game for Solanke coming up soon, and João Pedro this week, it's decent enough fixtures. So I'm not in a mad rush to sell Solanke. The one forward that I don't own is Chris Wood, right? And let's be real, Chris Wood is better than both João Pedro and Solanke this week. I'm not trying to pretend otherwise. It's just whether he's... I can't bring myself to do Solanke to Chris Wood because I've kept Solanke for that Arsenal game and now I'm selling him before Everton away and Leicester at home. It just doesn't make too much sense to me. And I'm just hoping, stupidly, that Chris Wood's returns might come down at some point. Like after Southampton, he has got 3 away games in the next 4, Bournemouth, Fulham and Newcastle, who are all played really well this season. And the game in between is Brighton away in 24, which I wouldn't mind playing him against. The thing that's killing me with him is every time he scores, he gets bonus, and he's on penalties. That's the problem. It's always 8 or 9 points. It's never just 6, like it is with Solanke. There is a temptation, I'll be honest, to make that move. But I just think when I look at the fixtures, I'd much rather have Spurs fixtures than Forest over the next 5 from an attacking point of view. And I've come this far with Solanke since game week 6. Do I just give him a bit more time? I was even looking on the predicted points on Hub. Again, check it out in the link in the description below. On forwards for the next 5 weeks, they have got Chris Wood slightly ahead, 26.5, Solanke 25.5, and Chris Wood quite a bit ahead this week, like 6.2 points predicted versus 4.6 for Solanke. But then Solanke's 5.6 for Leicester, but Chris Wood's still 5 against Bournemouth. I'm going to think about that a bit more, but I'll be honest, I just don't see me doing it. I am a little bit worried that I'm saving too many transfers right now because of the double and the blank coming up. Like it might get to the point where I don't need them all. I still like being in that flexible position where anything happens, I can just very easily react to it because of how many transfers I've got banked. So I don't see me doing João Pedro to Chris Wood because that would involve a second move. And honestly, looking at that team, I don't know who I would downgrade. I don't really want to sell Gabriel this week. I definitely don't want to sell Trent. Palmer, Salah going nowhere. And Burmo's got good fixtures from next week. So I'm not going to do a 2 transfer move to do João Pedro to Chris Wood. Even though João Pedro has been a bit underwhelming, to be honest, recently. It's just Solanke to Chris Wood in 1 move. And I'd still have 4 transfers next week. I'll think about it. I can promise that. I don't see me doing the move. And then Isak is my other option, which is playing Bournemouth at home. He's, of course, going nowhere. Even if Newcastle are being cautious with him at the moment, I still expect him to start. So no issues there. Captaincy-wise, it's tempting. He's on like 8 goals in a row now. 8 goals in 8 games. I just don't see... I think Bournemouth's the toughest fixture out of all 3. Wolves at home for Palmer, Brentford away for Salah, and Bournemouth at home for Isak. I think Bournemouth is arguably the toughest fixture there, and he's a forward. And I do like captain and midfielders where possible. So I think I'm going to stick to Palmer or Salah. But if you want to go for Isak, I mean, he's incredible, right? He's a brilliant player. He's on a great run. You should absolutely go for it, definitely. So I hate to say it, I'm probably going to roll. I think João Pedro being fit has pushed me into rolling. I can't get Gordon in 1 move. I can't get Chris Wood in 1 move unless I sell Solanke or Isak. I'm not that bothered about getting Lewis Hall or a Nottingham Forest defender this week because of who I've got. And I've only got 0.1 million in the bank. So I'm probably going to get to 5, unless there's any news in the press conferences today. It's Friday. I forgot about that. I'm probably going to roll to 5 transfers for the first time this season. I checked my AI suggested transfers on Hub as well. Again, recommends no transfer. It's boring. I get it, right? You hate it. You think because I've got a red arrow I should spend the transfers, but I'm feeling okay about that, team. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and rate 5 stars if you're listening on podcast. I'll be back later on for final thoughts after the press conferences. Deadline stream tomorrow, so I'll catch you all for that soon.